You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
This is episode 267 of Horsemanship Radio, brought to you by HandsOnGloves, the all-in-one revolutionary bathing, grooming, and shedding gloves. Horsemanship Radio is a part of the family of the Horse Radio Network. And today we're fortunate enough to listen in on a conversation that Monty Roberts recently had with Steve Kielt and his wife, Alison. This is Debbie Laux, and you're listening to the Horsemanship Radio. Thanks for joining us. Horsemanship Radio airs on the 1st and the 15th of the month, and I have my producer, Jen, with me today. Jen, I'm happy to share this one with you.
Greetings. Debbie, how is November treating you?
Oh, I love November because you know what my favorite holiday is?
Is it Thanksgiving?
It is. Really? It's the only one. Yeah, it is.
Why is Thanksgiving your favorite holiday?
Well, besides food. I love the food because there's no pressure on, it's just food. I mean, you know, that we give thanks. I love being grateful. I mean, that there's never enough reminders for us all to be grateful. We're alive. We're
That's right.
living in a very good country.
Very interesting point of view. Mm-hmm. No pressure.
No pressure.
So give me an example of another holiday that has pressure associated and what that pressure is.
The next month is full of pressure. It's Christmas and you got to come up with a gift and you got to do the Black Friday things or maybe the pre-Black Friday things now. There's all this pressure, the parties, the gifts, did I forget somebody? Oh my gosh, he got more than that person did. Did they get what they wanted? Oh.
Do you feel pressure for the peer pressure for the decorating part? You've got to put the lights out. You got to have the tree. You got to have no.
I decorate Poppy.
Tell everybody who Poppy is.
Poppy is our pure white unicorn mini. She is awesome. Have we not talked about Poppy lately? Oh my gosh.
We're not.
She's so perfect, Jen. She's just, you couldn't get a more perfect horse because she's got this flowy mane and flowy tail and she knows how to use it. You know what I mean?
So she has the head.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The nose in the air. And when she does her zoomies, you know what I mean, right? She goes out in the sand paddock and does zoomies. And so all I have to do is put her out there and she sniffs around a little bit and then I go, and what does she do? 100 miles an hour. I mean, she's got a rollback to beat mom's reining horse.
Really?
Oh my gosh. And then when she starts to slow down after 2 minutes or so, she starts doing this extended trot that would make dressage girls just green with envy. She's just amazing. Yeah. And, she's in this 24-inch package. No, she's pretty small, really. And so decorating her. Oh, just tiny. Yeah.
I bet you she's maybe 36 inches?
Yeah, probably something like that too. I did know that at one point, but I've forgotten now. Anyway, yeah, she's tiny. She's all white. She's got feathers. She's just perfect. And she's kind. She's very kind. She has her papers. So she is a therapy horse. And that's why we got her. Actually, we use her in our program, Horse Sense and Healing, for our veterans with post-traumatic stress and first responders. And then also in our lead up program, which is the program, if somebody is considering a year-end gift to Join Up International, it's a 501c3 nonprofit. We use her in those, and use is, she loves being used.
She likes having a job. Yeah.
She goes out, she gets fed grass, they hold her on the grass.
So tell everybody what Lead Up is.
Lead Up is a program for at-risk youth. And that sounds like a little generic. It really is kids that they've had violence in their life. And so there's trauma, but it's also a way of life. And a lot of these kids that come into the program, we've got after school programs in the Santa Barbara County area where kids they're either going to go the right direction in life or they're going to go the wrong direction in life. We're trying to catch them at 12, 13, 14 years old and redesign that reaction and response to stress and trauma, and even interaction between their parents, if there are parents. I mean, we do this program also in other countries. In Brazil, some of the kids don't even know their birthdays. That's how dysfunctional the families are. But in Santa Barbara County, where we hold this program here in Solvang, California, where our farm is, that is usually kids that have they're just a transient population that we can have here in Santa Barbara because of the agriculture. And these kids have had it really tough. And they are so keen to meet animals. They're so keen to interact with them, and they're so keen to actually have them in their life. Some of the kids have come with an agriculture background, but they don't know much about horses. They're afraid of them a lot of times.
Modern agriculture has nothing to do with an animal of any kind nowadays, does it? Yeah.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And I think people make that assumption, but these kids get in here and it's so cute. After 3 days, we do the program usually 2 to 3 days, depending on how many hours they can come and spend after school. But they want to be horse trainers. And how bad is that? They want to be horse trainers. It's fantastic because they didn't understand the flight animal before, but now they do. They do join up with us, but we also have a lot of interactive games that we play. The yes/no game, yes/no game is like hot or colder, but the kids learn to be very black and white in their communication system too. So it's yes or no, and it's the way we treat our horses, right? We say no or yes. That's about the source of information that we have flowing back and forth, because we can't talk to a horse and horse can't talk to us. So we have to be very clear and concise in our messaging between horses.
Ooh, I like that, because that's the bane of any horse person's existence is the human's propensity for non-clarity, for vagueness, for ambiguity in our communications, because so many of us have learned to thrive on that. Ooh,
that's right.
Let's talk about that in an upcoming episode next year.
Okay, I would love to. I would love to have Katie Cunningham on. She is the founder, was one of those people that she had moved from England to Guatemala and learned about the violence happening there. And she used horses to start this program in 2012. So yeah, I'd love to have her on again and talk a little bit about what she's done in that arc, because we've had quite a few years down the road now and she's been doing amazing work.
And I'd love to talk about how ambiguity in communication with horses as well as people can lead to so many difficulties. Just that simple, that's one of those 50,000 foot views. Ambiguity. Find ways to recognize it and find ways to eliminate it. Because if you don't recognize it, you can't eliminate it, right?
Beautiful.
Ooh, good stuff. And speaking of good stuff,
yeah,
we've got good stuff in our title sponsor, who's been our title sponsor here on the show for quite a few years, HandsOnGloves. And it's gotten to be winter in most parts of the world. So well on its way. Horses are getting thick coats. Here in Florida, despite thick coats, we still are using bug repellents on our horses.
Yes.
Because the flies are kind of here year round, unfortunately. But in many parts of the country, everybody's clipped their horse straight away. And I have discovered that the hands-on glove is the absolute best way to get spray-on products onto your horse and more effective. If you read the label of a fly spray bottle, most of the time it tells you to groom the horse and then brush it in. And it does work better if you do that. It makes sense because then it's covering all the hair, not just the little droplet on the hair.
That's right. That's right.
But if you're using coat conditioners of any sort, brushing them and grooming them in is going to make them more effective. I'm using my finger. I'm very passionate about this. It's going to make it more effective. And that's the good products are expensive. Make them as effective as possible. So if you don't already have yourself a pair of hands-on gloves, yes, they come in pairs, so you're getting 2 for 1. Put it on your Christmas list.
That's right.
To either get for you, put it on the Christmas list of your horse people, or just treat yourself.
Or it's time to treat yourself. Yeah, that December thing again. That's beautiful. I'm so glad you said that, because rubbing it in is the effective part. Just putting it on top of the hair it's kind of a lottery whether the fly lands at the right spot or not. So I love that, Jen. And it doesn't get soaked up in a brush. Your product, it goes straight on to all those needs.
Right.
And
you spray it on the horse and then groom away, and you're getting more for your nickel, and you're doing a lot more for your horse, because the conditioner that he needs or the fly repellent that he needs is going to work better.
Yeah, and half the time with the 2 gloves. Very good.
And half the time, and I've discovered this also. I'm a giant walking commercial for Hands On Gloves. We have a green pair and a purple pair, if anybody's wondering.
Yeah, purple.
Glenn's are purple and mine are green. When you are in a hurry and you need to groom your horse, if you've got a glove on each hand, it takes you half as long to groom your horse.
Exactly. That's
Saying,
exactly.
You get to the barn after work, it's going to be dark in 7.5 minutes. Hello, cut grooming time in half.
That's right. And go ride your horse.
And go ride your horse. And with that, we would like to introduce our guests.
So Steve and Alison Kielt showed up at Flagazette Farms, Monty Roberts' farm here at the California Horse Center, where we have all our new boarders and beautiful new facilities. And Stephen Kielt knows the pressure of the Royal Ascot, and he knows what it can bring because he was responsible for shoeing the mighty Frankel. Frankel was an unbeaten thoroughbred racehorse in England, and he did 14 race career starts and won them all before they retired him. And just as Steve did with Frankel's trainer, Henry Cecil, Kielt has had the pleasure of being able to watch the horse stars in action on the famous Newmarket Gallops. So from Newmarket Gallops to Flagazette Farms, listen in on this conversation between 2 great minds discussing their favorite topic, horses. I would love to hear a little bit about your background and your story. You work under the horse as a farrier, and we're going to hear a little bit more about that. And Monty has worked with a few horses in his life, and farriers are some of his favorite people because no foot, no horse, right? Okay. And I want to start with this kind of crazy question. Give us a little bit about we've read your bio, but give us a little insight as to, what your job is that you're doing currently.
So basically currently, as you say, a farrier, which basically, in very simple terms, look after the feet of horses. And I say look after the feet as opposed to shoe them, because while shoeing is, of course, part of our job, also just trimming and maintaining feet are. So I wouldn't limit it to just saying I shoe horses. I'm a farrier for horses. I work 100% pretty much in Thoroughbred horses, both in training and at stud. So we have a multi-farrier business based in Newmarket in England, and we have a couple of training clients. One of them has about 200 horses in training, the other one about 80 to 90. And as well as that, I also do some stud work, which is looking after foals and yearlings, with a particular emphasis on, maintaining and correcting true trimming and etc., any angular deformities or flexural deformities, to try and leave these horses as correct conformationally as they can, because while good conformation won't necessarily make a horse go faster, it will reduce the chance of injury during training and later in life. So that's pretty much our business.
That's a lot of business right there. Can one man do all those horses in their rotation?
No. So like I say, we have a team, a multi-farrier team. I have 3 farriers at subcontract, but quite uniquely, we're on contract. So we actually contract them in on set amount of hours, set salary. So we go away from the business model of paying per horse.
I see.
And I'm going to explain sort of roughly why that is. When you're paying per horse and paying per trim or set of shoes, there's a natural inkling that people might be a little bit rushed or want to get horses done. You don't want to do so many. And when you're running a big yard, you've got to not only shoe the horse, trim the horse, but we look after the whole foot care of the horse. We be in sort of half an hour before the first horse pulls out in the morning at, they pull out at 6, we might be in at 5:30, earlier if they've gallopers. And we stay till the last horses come in. We go back evening time, and we also work sort of Sundays. So I sort of found we needed to get away from that traditional model and sort of adjust how we done things. And that means if we have a problem, if we need to treat a horse, we need to just look at it. We want to view it walk. That, I don't need to worry that the farriers that I'm employing as such are begrudging it or they're rushing. So they're very happy. We don't overwork in terms of the amount of horses we have, but we spend a lot of time in terms of taking care of them, also the communication and the service.
That's a brilliant concept. And this is where I bring Alison, your wife, in on this too. So he works 7 days a week, I think I just heard.
He does.
And how does that work at home?
Well, he's out 12 hours a day, never at home. outside of flat racing season, he travels now. So he's off to Japan. He comes over here. So he's not at home, really.
So we've taken you out of your vacation, which is why you're here, to talk about Farrier.
We're partly here for work. Okay. Stephen's at work also.
Okay, you did say it's a working vacation, so good. Well, we're happy to have you here. And Monty and you have some similar stories. I know known people, the same people, and I hear a consistent story about Frankel, very famous horse that most people, I think, will know the name of, and also Cecil and Sir Henry Cecil. You've both known too. So flabbergasted that this gentleman just walked in and never met you before.
I'm not flabbergasted. What I am is proud of the fact that I can sit down with a farrier that's a registered farrier that has a job to do and is connected with several other farriers which probably have similar opinions about their work, and that my work has influenced them in some way or other. And I couldn't have done that when I first began to demonstrate my work. Before the Queen said, "Come over here, I want you to help me." Before the Queen's encouragement to take this globally, you couldn't sit down with a farrier like this. Now, I had one farrier that was fantastic. And I wanted to fire this farrier the first day I met the farrier. And the reason was that my former farrier had died. And then I had my barn foreman, while I was out with one set, tell me that it was a lady barn foreman. She hired another farrier. And I said, "Well, that's good, but I want to know that we've got a good one because I'm going to the 2-year-old sale with 40 head or something like that." And she said, "Well, if you go down there, they're working on one right now. Just come back and tell me what you think." And I went down there, and a lady was shoeing this horse. And I looked at that, and I turned my horse around, and I rode back, and I said, "What in the world are you doing to me?"
Now, this is like 1978, I want to say?
Yeah, 1978. And she had known this lady before. And that made it worse for me because they were just a friend doing... And with 40 head of horses, there was a lot of money going down the drain somewhere. And a lady farrier doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. And she said, "Well, keep watching her, and then if I can find another one, I will." The guy died, the one before died in his pickup on the way across Los Angeles to get to Hollywood Park, and I had a barn full of horses at Hollywood Park. And now I can talk to farriers and mention Ada Gates, and they say, "Ooh, she's really good, you know." What? The world is changing. And I feel that I have made basically the move that I made for Ada Gates was a big change right here in this area. But I think the principles that the Queen encouraged me to take to the world has gradually influenced. It's not easy, but it's a gradual change to getting the violence out of the training of horses, the shoeing of horses, the veterinary work with horses. Is getting the violence out and realizing that they have a nervous system too. And that oftentimes pain will cause them to go against you rather than for you.
Right.
And so I'm so proud to have you here and to realize that you took one of my courses.
Alison, we got to get to Alison's story. How does
horses.
Alison's story get to, besides the Monty story, but how does it get to Steve too?
Well, because, as I said, I did the introductory course in 2009.
Here in California.
In California. And then I stayed in town for 6 months.
Yeah.
And then I went back to the UK, but I wasn't meant to be staying in the UK. But then I met Stephen, and we progressed in our relationship, and
I heard it
ended
didn't
up-
happen that way on the first date,
It
though.
did not. I couldn't stand him on the first day. I really couldn't. I went home and thought, thank goodness I'm not with someone like that.
Like that. Oh, my goodness. And then you flip-flopped. How?
Well, I think I somehow managed to turn it around.
He's Irish, and the Irish can be charming. So
Okay, and then
I
you
think-
charmed her. How did you charm her?
Yeah, well, I think I realised, Alison's, as you probably can tell, she's a beautiful woman.
She is.
Highly articulate and intelligent. I was approaching my 30s in Newmarket, working quite hard and also having, no tie down with relationships or anything like that. So I was able to work, able to travel, and also able to have, weekends and go out and have drinks, etc. And I'd actually been out, end of the season with one of my good friends. Tony Malia, another good friend of mine, was leaving for Australia. He was a farrier. Tony's wife was into Western horses, and she had met Alison on a course, unbeknownst to me,
an equine therapy.
in equine therapy, after Alison returned from her time here.
Okay.
And Tony basically phoned and said, look, I'm going back in a couple of days. Can you come and meet me? I'm with my wife and she's got a friend. And I left my day in Cambridge. I went back and met them, and within 10 minutes, literally, Tony said, look, I've got to go. So I was in that foul mood. I was like having a great day.
Left
I've
with
now
the ladies.
Come back, left with these two ladies. And yeah, I was just in a foul mood. And no matter what Alison says, black, I said white. She said the sun's shining, I said it's raining. So she was trying to explain to me about Western horses. And I was, just not giving her the time of day. She talked about being here with Monty. And again, I was just dismissive in every way. And I woke up the next morning and I thought, God, what an idiot. I actually was introduced to a lovely girl. And it was the Breeders' Cup. It was this weekend or next weekend. And it was the Breeders' Cup. And it was traditional. We would go out with my friends and watch it. And Tony phoned me and he says, Alison had the most wonderful night. She really enjoyed meeting you, which of course I now know to be totally untrue. And I must have really, sensed that I had a real soft spot for her, because I said, okay, I'll come and meet you. So I cancelled my Breeders' Cup night and arranged to go and meet him. And it actually didn't happen. He said, look, we can't meet tonight. Let's meet tomorrow. And so the very next night we met, and I must have, put on a totally different side, been as charming as I could. And that was on the Sunday night. And on the Monday, we left Tony and Alison's friend Tracy to the airport. We drove them down together. We'd now had a nice evening the night before. We had a nice day the next day. We took Alison up to Henry Cecil's stable. We showed her around. And we dropped him at the airport and we started dating. And as a result, Alison never returned to America, for what she repeatedly, and now I can totally understand why, misses in some ways what she could have had. Newmarket's a great place, and it's a great place for me working in Thoroughbreds. But of course, when you come here and you look around, and we've had the joy of spending the last few days in this area, and it's just the most beautiful place on earth, and I genuinely say that. It's
Thank you.
stunning.
Nice. Thank you. It's a great place to raise horses up too. I know.
Yeah,
Too.
absolutely. And I think, one thing that really shines through is the tranquility of the place, of the environment. You can really see, even like it sometimes can take me a week to decompress when I've just finished a season. I think I would say it's took me less than 48 hours. I've really just felt at ease, and you can really see how horses can thrive here. And you can also see how people can thrive, and I can see how Alison really talks so fondly of the time she had here, and also the time here at your ranch, Monty's ranch. And you can see also why she, delayed her trip home after the initial course was over and spent time living in Solvang. It's just wonderful for me to come back.
Well, I'm glad to have met you and have you back here too. And that was a total surprise on
Totally.
2 days ago.
So we were here 2 days ago because I wanted to show Stephen the farm and where I had been. So that's how we stumbled
Wandered in.
across you the other day when you were with your farrier.
Yeah, wasn't that funny?
That was very funny.
The barefoot farrier was here, barefoot trimmer.
And you did rope me into a little bit of work.
We did. He pulled shoes for us. It was awesome. Yeah, I thought this is just little angels just showed up.
So you see how my life goes.
I do.
I work like hell, and I try to get good ideas going, And I can't change people very well.
Really? Okay.
Oh, I think you do.
But losing to Alison because he found a beautiful woman that just moved him right across the boards got me lost.
Pretty tough. Yeah, pretty tough.
But Alison had been to a course, so I'm on the edges of it.
You know, I think she dropped your name. I think
She
you may have
absolutely
been.
did.
You dropped your name.
No, it's very, a funny first date that we've, recounted this story many times. Your father, Monty, his reputation precedes him, all over the world, and when I think of my own journey with horses, I started out obviously to become a farrier and do the best I absolutely could. That was always my ambition. I travelled from Ireland till Scotland originally to attend college at 16 because we didn't need to be registered in Ireland. Monty spoke about being a registered farrier, but I wanted to do my English qualifications. When I finished and qualified, by a chance meeting once again, I met a man now called Dr. Simon Curtis, and I spent 2 years in Newmarket, originally 2 years to go and spend time with him at a veterinary practice as his understudy. Very famously said the first week, listen, I know your business is racehorses. Racehorses aren't really my thing. I've no interest in them. I don't come from a racing background, but I'm very eager to learn. And as long as you take me to Rossdale's every week, as you promise, I will remain working for you. And when you don't, I won't. And he was true to his word, and I had 3 wonderful years as an understudy till Simon. But in that time, I got to experience Thoroughbred racing. I also got to experience, the luxury of the wealth surrounding certain Newmarket and sort of the ability for the level of care these horses were given. As a farrier, you could pretty much, and we still decide what we do with the horses, when we shoe them, how they're shod, pretty much, what dates we shoe them. There's never anyone saying, come next Tuesday and do this.
Oh, is that right?
So we run our total whole farriering cycle. We work very closely with the vets, very closely with the trainers, the head lads. So you feel very much part of a team. You feel that you are, contributing to that horse's well-being. Not only in the racing yard, but especially when you're dealing with youngsters, when you're having an influence on their conformation. And I think, something that, obviously I share with yourself and your father and, of course, Alison, is at the forefront of everything you do, there has to be the horse's care and well-being, has to be at the centre of that, soundness, how you prepare their feet. Of course, as you get older, I found that my own, handling experience has improved. So when you're a young man, you find you get lots of misbehaved horses. And when you're an older man, you find you get a lot less misbehaved horses.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
I remember my boss used to, when I was an apprentice, we'd very often have 2 horses. When I was at the stage I was shoeing, he would say, you pick which horse you want to do. And I'd always be trying to remember which was the quietest one. So I'd say, Bobby here was quieter than, Joey. So I would do Bobby, and Joey, of course, would stand perfectly for my boss, and my horse would mess around. And we got in the van one day and he said, why do you think your horse always messes around? So that got me thinking. And, over the years, I figured that there's so many reasons. We're going to talk about the deer in a little bit, being even more intuitive than the horse. But I find, with the horses, they're extremely susceptible to how you're feeling. Are you nervous? Are you apprehensive? Are you in a bad mood? So we briefly talked about Frankel earlier. And one of the questions I would often get asked is, how would you shoe Frankel, or how would you shoe these horses you're going to do in the Breeders' Cup? And the answer is certainly no different than any other horse. But I do feel there is certain things that can make you peak. I think, as humans, some people might be better in the morning, in the evening. It is a hand-eye coordination job. So I would always, if possible, like to do a couple of nice, quiet, good-footed horses in the morning. If you're dealing with horses with difficult feet, they require a lot more intensity, a lot more concentration. So you might not want to do a load of them in a row, because you might find that you're actually fatiguing mentally. I maybe find, like, if I'm doing a really important horse that I would like to do it mid-morning, I'd like the horse to have been out and exercised, to come in, eat its food, maybe do it, maybe say if the horse exercised first lot, maybe do a third lot when the horses pull out. So it's had a full hour and a half to eat, drink water, relax. And then you wait till the other horses pull out, so they're not walking by the stable when you're in. So there's all these little things, I'm sure Monty will resonate with this. There's all these little things you can do every single day that increase your chances of success or certainly reduce your chances of failure. And I think they're two different things.
That's right.
Yeah, they are.
That's right.
I think, it's quite easy to do a good job, but the key is, especially when you're working with high stakes or big races, is to reduce the risk of mistakes, reduce the likelihood of something going wrong, also reduce the likelihood of the horse feeling anxious, nervous, because if they feel anxious and nervous, they're going to be more difficult to shoe, and of course that's going to increase the chances of something going wrong.
Exactly.
So I love the psychology, both in terms of the human psychology and also in terms of the horse psychology of how you approach the job, how you approach each individual horse, how you approach the shoeing cycle, again to reduce the risks or make sure that hoof is in optimum condition on the day that you're shoeing it for the biggest
big
races.
Yeah, the biggest races too.
Silly things like that would be nail placement, like you can't keep putting the nails in the same place all the time.
Right.
But if you put them further forward or further back, you increase the risk of lameness. So what I'd usually find is after the big race, maybe the first shoeing, I would place them a little bit more further forward and further back. So that means if I fit the shoe similar the next time and I trim the foot similar and I go in between, it's very, very hard for me to lame that horse because I've already done the more risky parameters.
I see.
So there's all these multitude of little things and a lot of it is horsemanship.
We pause here to point out that the care and precision that Steve and his team take with the horses in their care is what Monty appreciates, passing on good horsemanship, which is why he launched his Equus Online University in 2009, the first of its kind, an interactive online lesson site that's the definitive learning tool for violence-free training. Monty Roberts first gained widespread fame with the release of his New York Times bestselling book, The Man Who Listens to Horses. It's a chronicle of his life and the development of his nonviolent horse training methods called Join Up. Monty grew up on a working horse farm as a firsthand witness to traditional, often violent methods of horse training and breaking the spirit with an abusive hand. Rejecting that, he went on to win 11 World's Championships in the show ring. Today, Monty's goal is to share his message that violence is never the answer. Roberts has been encouraged by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II with the award of the membership in the Royal Victorian Order, as well as becoming patron of Join Up International by Her Majesty in 2012. Other honors received were the ASPCA Founders Award and the MSPCA George T. Angell Humanitarian Award and the FEI's Man of the Year and Horse and Hound's Top 50 Horsemen of all time. And now back to our interview with Steve, where he tells us about his next adventures.
The great influences on my career, I would say that's many, but if I was to single four, it would be my father, that was a horseman, broke horses like Monty, rid horses, learned to shoe later in life because they were struggling to get a farrier. But I would say he was more of a horseman than a farrier. Unfortunately, he suffered ill health and he wasn't really active too much as I went through later in primary school into secondary school, so I don't recall. But his influence about doing things correctly, about horsemanship, about empathy, stood me in still stands me in huge stead. My first boss, again, was just a terrific guy to teach me shoeing in multi different types of discipline. And then after that, the two people that really stand out is Alison sitting beside me because she brought a different approach. When she first met me, I was like, that's not how it works. And I'm sure this is something you've heard many times, Monty, in your career.
The words.
That's not how you do things. This is not how it works in Newmarket. And she would ask, why? Why can you not do that? Why can you not be more professional? We've brought in lots of different things along that, software, communication, how we interact with clients. In fact, most of my big clients now have been a direct result of Alison's direct involvement or pushing for me and how to approach them.
I originally trained in law.
You're trained in law. Okay.
Originally, so
Smart marriage here.
law.
Yeah, she's an attorney.
So I brought a little bit of that side of professionalism. For example, like the reporting, the videos,
Yeah, lots of things like we'll video each young stock, like we'll video every foal and yearling before and after I trim it.
Smart.
We'll also send reports off, like I've got a father and daughter client in America, John and Tanya Gunfer. They bred Justify that won the Triple Crown. I look after some of their stock in England, and we'll send Tanya the reports, and the Arcus family will send reports, and we'll video the horse, not only the conformation, but we'll video the foal growing, and I think they love that level of communication.
Absolutely.
Northern Farm, big owners. 2 years ago, I was going to Dubai because my friend who's here in America works for Godolphin, Sheikh Mohammed. He didn't train with me, but he spent a few years with me. He got the job at Godolphin, and I was delighted, and he wanted me to come to Dubai because it was his first year. And of course, being competitive, I was like, God, you're doing all the good horses. So I've done some work for the Japanese. I've got to reach out to them. And I did. And anyway, they said, Northern Farm got in contact, and they said, look, we have 8 or 9 horses coming over. We've 2 Farriers already, but you can help. So we landed, and they had this horse Equinox, which was a world champion last year. Terrific horse. And when I landed, they said, okay, do 1 on Wednesday, 7 on Thursday, which was a lot, talking about this intensity. Boom, boom, boom. Who's helping? Just you. So then there was problems with quarantine. And suddenly they went really funny with me. It wasn't my fault, but you could tell they went really cold all of a sudden, and it was like, we want you to do these horses. And it was all, and I sort of thought, and I phoned Alison, and it was one of the few times where I really felt overwhelmed. And, I just thought, I wish I hadn't done this. No one seems to have any faith in me. They're telling me what I can do, what I can't. What time do you start this horse? What time do you finish? We don't want you to be messing around. Yeah. And I just sort of thought, and I phoned her, and I couldn't get hold of her for a few hours because it was the middle of the night. And I actually, very rarely, but I felt sort of almost tearful, and I think I did feel tearful. And she says, don't be silly, you've shot good horses, they'll sort itself out the quarantine issue, and it did. And anyway, that was on the Monday. And by the time I went to shoot this horse on the Wednesday, I was fully back on song. And I walked in and relaxed and do the horse, because had I been not on song,
Gotcha.
I just think it's a problem. It's a massive problem. And you've got to be psychologically in the right place, because the horses pick up on it.
Yes.
And if you're nervous.
Yes, and I want you to go home and practice diaphragmatic breathing. Have you ever practiced it?
I have. Have you ever done Pilates?
Yes.
So do you do it in Pilates?
Yeah.
Because they say, we used to do it in Pilates, where they would say, engage, imagine you're engaging the bottom of your rib cage in, and then breathe down into almost your abdomen area. That's how we would practice.
The name for it is diaphragmatic, but a lot of people don't use that. So a lot of people use the exercise, but don't always name it.
If you'll do this, if you can go and do some tests when you have some time with horses and you're not pressed for anything, and feel their pulse rate, and then just go, and you'll feel the pulse rate go from 48 to 56, and you go, 42. You can do that much. And the difference between those two is a horse that takes his foot away from you, a horse that wants to step on your foot and pull away from you. All sorts of things that nervousness does. And I have a lady in England, in Wales.
Yeah. Joanna Lowe's
sat out here and learned this while she was here with me on one of the courses. And she hadn't heard of it before, but we were getting into it in the course. And in about 2 hours, she could take her pulse rate from 58 to 44. You can't do that, they said. But now when I go to have I have to go every 3rd week now for infusions.
Yeah.
And they have to hit this crazy...
Boost the immunity system, yeah.
They have to hit this crazy vein back here, this one. And they do your vitals before they put it in, and they do vitals afterward to be sure that all this stuff has gotten into you. It's 2 hours of draining into you. And these people will say, wow, your pulse rate is only 48 today. Oh, yeah. Well, you want it to be 55? Wait a minute. What are you doing here? It's 56. You want it to be 44? What is going on here? They didn't know. They're people, professionals that are doing this.
And isn't that important when you get into a position where something external to you and that horse is happening?
Yeah.
Your horse is going to rely on you, right? And so to be able to control that physiology is hugely important. Somebody might say, well, then why don't you always keep it at 42? Well, if you're paying attention, you could. But if you're not paying attention,
you won't.
Things can slip along. Yeah, that's it. Did you see some work like that today, Stephen, with the deer?
Well, I think it was really interesting, meeting Monty. Of course, like I said, his reputation precedes, but I think we were very fortunate because we came at a time, roughly 4:00, and Monty was going to feed the deer. And, I think the first thing, we didn't go out the front because the deer were out the front. And I think, you suggested we go out the front, and I think Monty said no because he didn't want to disturb where they're sitting resting. But out the back, they're used to getting feeding. So you go out and the deer are there. But I think it really struck me, pretty powerfully, I think, a sense of at one with the animals. Obviously being careful as routine, but straight away he was sensing and, saying to us that they're not following their total normal behaviour, even allowing for that it was a breeding season, so the breeding season sort of puts them off a little bit track. And also, there's an abundance of food as well. But even that, I think they were just a little bit more unsettled. And I think, Monty was picking up on it straight away. Even before they would have been expected to go, he was saying, it's just not themselves, they're not coming. So I think, and you could also, looking at, I was looking at the deer, but I was also looking at Monty, and you can really feel his empathy with the deer, and also the questioning as to why are they not coming, with the strange people here, but maybe if you sit here or just with here. So, I really felt that, that you can tell the emotional connection, and I didn't see Monty with horses, but I seen him with deer, and I suppose they're still the same animals. I think, he said earlier that deer are actually even more intuitive than horses. So there's a couple, and he noticed that they were turning away and looking over the path where we couldn't see, but sort of saying there'll be something coming up there. So I think when you're looking at that, I'm going to say horsemanship, but of course it wasn't horsemanship. It was with deer, but it was with the empathy of animals, that ability to really almost be at one with them, to observe them, to sort of understand why are they responding, why are they not responding, even to the little enclosure that he's made to keep the two special ones or their own space, where they're tracking down and then they weren't really going where they were meant to be. And so I just really had a real sense of, I suppose, what makes him unique.
You caught me today wanting me love to come back over here. You normally come back over here. Why?
I got a sense of your disappointment.
Yeah.
That they weren't.
She did too. And so she stayed away.
Yeah.
And pretty soon I thought, she's not going to come. So then she came. And she got a lot closer to me, as you could see me rubbing her all over and everything. You can't do that with a deer.
Yeah, totally wild deer.
I mean, never in a museum, or what do you call those things?
In a zoo, you mean?
Zoo, yeah. Not in a cage and domesticated.
So I love that feeling of that connection. I think it shone through. Not only did it shine through, when we come into this, stunning house and this stunning saloon, and there's no doubt in terms of a property, in terms of a location, you couldn't get a more wonderful place. But that doesn't tell, a fraction of the story, because a rich property developer could go and put a house on and overlooking a valley. So, that alone isn't unique. I think.
Well, I've given you the first step in a real story.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That you take that step and teach yourself diaphragmatic
Yeah,
breathing.
no,
And
I
you
will.
have a teacher that has enough knowledge of it to help you with it.
Try.
And you get yourself one of those little cups and start understanding who you are and where you are with that little cup on like that tells you your pulse rate and stuff, and see what you can do about controlling your pulse rate. And don't tell a lot of farriers about it.
And I said earlier, and you share a trait with, a great man that I worked for many years, Henry Cecil, laterally Sir Henry Cecil, and if I was to say that my father and my boss Jim Rankin were the first two early influences, Alison, obviously a massive influence, and of course I would say that the fourth person is Henry Cecil. And people would say, well, why Henry wasn't a farrier, and I didn't discuss much shoeing with Henry, apart from really the first day I went and he told me what he wanted, and it fitted with what I wanted to do anyhow. He gave me great confidence. Henry is an amazing man. Your father met him, an amazing man. I always say he had
His father.
No, your father.
He's talking to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've met him.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
So Monty's met Henry. I always say Henry had an amazing trait. He could get horses to run for him and people to work for him. But what made him such an influence on me as a farrier, or how did he give me what I would say such an advantage? He gave me an advantage because he taught me to think like a trainer. He taught me to think about the horse.
Yeah.
He wouldn't often tell you off, but when he did, you knew about it, and he would repeat himself multiple times. For example, like I parked my van outside a barn one day. Why are you parking your van there? That's a stupid place to park your van. You understand when you start the engine, the horses can't see you and you're going to startle them. You got to think, you're meant to be a horseman, think.
You know that I lived with his
That's
father.
good mentoring.
Did you really? Yeah.
I lived with his father there, and I had these principles already going for me, and I was starting to build this farm, just going to build it in the next year. And I stayed with him for months there, and he kept telling me, teach Henry this,
About that.
And then Henry would say, oh, come on, And then Henry would come back and say, hey, this works. And put like the starting gates and the farriers, and there was those starting gates behind there where the real difficult horses were.
Henry used to say, he says, we've got the best property in town because it's the only stable now. It might have changed since, but it was the only stable where all the horses, no matter what exercise they'd done, they were always heading home.
Yeah.
They're all up Warren Hill. Nearly every other trainer in town, as you go up Warren Hill, you're leaving Newmarket. When you go up Warren Hill, you're going to Warren Place. It was a very special stable, and of course at the like you're the king of your kingdom here. Henry was the king of his kingdom there, and you talk about these things he would teach you. Like don't go to shoot a horse straight after it's galloped. Give the horse a chance to relax. Don't be shooting it just before it goes out. So I wouldn't say he taught you everything, because when someone teaches you something, you're taking what they learn, and that's it. And if they don't teach you something else, you don't learn it. He taught me how to think, how to anticipate certain things that he would or would not like. And of course, when you're thinking like Henry was thinking, it was all about the horse. He, used to, and my wife would say this all the time, slow down, you're walking too fast, I can't keep up with you. Henry always, you'd hear him say, slow down, the colts had to walk slow so that the fillies weren't walking fast. He just had a way of, getting horses to be attuned, getting people to be attuned.
Yeah.
It wasn't, there's a difference between laid back and sloppiness. It wasn't a yard that was sloppy by any stretch. He had a very insightful eye.
He loved, both of them loved the fact that 90% of the pressure time with the rider on their back, not walking, not trotting, but the pressure time with the rider on their back, they were headed home.
Yeah.
And he let them go home. And you don't do that in 99% of the horse facilities. You don't do that.
And he had very genuine horses. You know, when you look at his horses racing, they were very genuine in a finish. You know, they very rarely wore headgear, special gadgets. You know, he used to say to me, you know, you could really only get a horse to peak twice a year, like very close to its maximum output. And of course, the more you go to the 100, the harder it is for the horse to recover. So of course, when you're preparing these youngsters for classics, you can very often destroy a horse. So, you know, he seemed to just be able to bring that horse along gradually. He wasn't asking him the serious questions all the time, because of course you would sour a horse quite easily. But he seemed to have the horse mentally and physically ready for when it really needed to be. And as a result, they were able to really dig down on those big occasions. And, you know, I think as, you know, as a horseman and as a trainer, and also as someone that a great person to be around, you know, and learn from, you know, he has to stand as, you know, one of the greats, certainly in the Thoroughbred world.
Sounds like.
And an amazing man.
Yeah.
I get a sense of his empathy, you know, being along the same, you know, line of Monty's, you know, as in they really feel that connection with the horse. You know, of course, Henry was, you know, asking horses to do a job, you know, he was training them, and, you know, they were trying to win races, but he had a way of really being empathetic to horses and to people that I would think more times than not got the best out of them. And I think certainly a horse like Frankel, you know, that came along to Henry at the latter part of his career, you know, probably at a time when he had amassed not only a huge amount of experience, but I also think he had probably learnt, you know, talking to people that knew him before, you know, he had learnt even more empathy, even more patience.
Sure.
He had also learnt how to deal with illness. And not only that, he had learnt how, you know, the tide can turn, and how he had been this champion for 10 years and suddenly, you know, he was down to 40 horses. So I would think I worked with him on the beginning of that revival right up till he died. And I would think that at that time, he probably even appreciated what he had.
Probably.
You know, and he was able to bring that wealth of experience. Till a horse like Frankel, it wasn't easy. You know, he was very headstrong, he was exuberant, unquestionably hugely talented, and I think Henry recognised that. But
didn't I work with him down at the lower stable?
Frankel would have been about he made his debut in 2010, 2011, 2012. So I met Alison at the end of Frankel's 2-year-old career, and it's one of my, you know, great joys that she was part of that story, because he's someone that inevitably he keeps cropping up in conversations. He was a special horse, and had Alison, not only did she met me as part of that, but she also met me when I was with Henry, and I talked about this empathy and also about this understanding of people. And I believe, you know, Henry was so far ahead of the game. You know, anytime we went racing, he would have not only got owners and trainers tickets for me, he would have got them for Alison. And that included in his last race. So, and I think part of that was for kindness, but I also think part of it was because he knew in my job that I had to give an awful lot.
Part of earning your grade.
And we talked about...
And congratulations for the A instead of the B in your grade.
And he also, I think, understood that as my partner, Alison would have to forgo a lot of things, a lot of time together, a lot of holidays, a lot of things. So by including her, making her feel so part of it, making her feel so special, now whenever I say, she's like, you got to do this. So I think part of it was good human nature, part of it was empathy, but part of it was also understanding that in order to have the man, you need to have the backing of the woman. And I think he was an extremely thoughtful guy. He was extremely competitive. Now, I'm sitting here with a man that has won so many world championships that we couldn't even begin to go through them. But he also had a competitive edge, and I think in order to really succeed at the highest level, there has to be part of you that is driven, part of you is competitive, and part of you wants to be better tomorrow than you were today.
It's a bit obsessed, actually.
An obsessive nature.
Most champions are.
And I gather, and again, I've never met Monty before. I've heard many things about him through other people, through Alison, through media. But I you can sense that love and passion is there, and you can sense it. He, like Henry, he's a man that looks forward till tomorrow more than reminisces about yesterday. And
That's right. That's right. Thank you, all three, for being here and being part of your story. Stephen, it's a great story, and it's fun to have Monty as part of that story, and certainly something that you've contributed, Alison, to it, and the horses, of course, are at the center of all of this, and great champions. Thank you.
Whisper the language of the herd. Listen, you don't have to say a word.
It's time for Jamie Jennings to fetch an email from Monty Roberts' inbox and share a morsel of Monty's wisdom in a little segment we like to call Ask Monty.
Leave this world a better place than mine. The magic in the language of the herd.
Ask Monty, episode 112. Dear Monty, would you normally talk to a horse? Monty's answer: sure. I might say, hey, shy boy, how you doing today? Of course I talk to him, but does he understand my words? Nah, probably not. What I mean is he hears my voice, but he has no idea what I'm saying. You cannot go out there and tell a horse to accept his first bridle, saddle, and rider using words. Their language, equus, is silent. It's a language of gestures. I cannot emphasize this strongly enough. I've started 8 to 10 horses in a day without saying a word. Should you choose, training your horse to respond to voice commands is fine. Most equestrians effectively use voice commands. You should be aware, however, that this is a habituated response. Until trained to voice commands, horses rarely respond to any of our words.
For more of these insights into good horsemanship, go to MontyRoberts.com and click on the words Ask Monty at the bottom of the page.
Where in the world is Monty Roberts?
Monty is looking forward to meeting some new friends, two-legged and four-legged, on December. Now we're coming right up on it. It's December 9 through 21. We have our Monty Roberts Introductory Course of Horsemanship. That's our theme today, is horsemanship, good horsemanship. And then in January, we have 8 through 23, another Monty Roberts Introductory Course of Horsemanship. And those are broken into modulars. So we have modulars that are now 2 to 3 to 4 days long, too. So if somebody can't do the 2 weeks, that's what you do. And then January 19th, we have our first of the 2025 Mountain Trail Play Day. And I'm really excited to get the month kicked off and also the year kicked off with our Mountain Trail Play Day. Super fun.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah.
All of that and more at MontyRoberts.com. It's your one-stop shop for everything Monty Roberts, including shopping.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can buy stuff there.
Christmas.
You can call Flaggins Up Farms 805-688-6288. And for details about today's show, horsemanshipradio.com. That's all things podcast. And you'll find links, photos, and more information about today's guests and topics. We love your feedback, and we'd love to hear from you on social media. On Facebook, it's Monty Roberts, the one with the little blue check mark. And on Twitter, as well as Insta, it's Monty_Roberts.
Very good. We haven't updated to X yet. I keep forgetting to do that in my thing. X is Twitter.
Everybody knows it's Twitter.
Everybody knows that. Okay, many thanks to our sponsors, too. We talked about you, Jay Michelson. Thank you so much for being who you are and supporting horsemanship. There we are. And also MontyRobertsUniversity.com. And that's where all our horsemanship online lessons started. And be sure to visit all the other great shows, too, on the Horse Radio Network at www.horseradionetwork.com.
By the way, the holiday shopping season is coming up.
Ding, 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 ding.
Horse people are constantly trying to figure out a way to stay sane over the winter months.
Mm-hmm.
Give the gift of a subscription to Monty Roberts University.
It's so much fun. You can do that during the winter when it's blasting and you don't have a covered arena.
That's right. And what you can do is get together with your friends and say, hey, we're going to do video series X, Y, or Z or topic X, Y, or Z. Do it together.
Fine.
Chat about it over wine. If you can't get together in person, chat over it over wine, online. You can do a little FaceTime. It's a great way to spend the winter learning more about horsemanship, and it's super, super affordable.
That's great, Jen. I'd never thought about communal series of lessons. I'm going to put out another. Yeah, we got a new series out on Ultima right now. This filly that we had at Joanna Lowe's and Jamie Jennings worked with her, and she was so cool, but she was right off the mountain. So she was semi-feral and they were having a hard time catching her in the stall. Hello. And they put the first saddle on her. So it's a whole series going on right now from start to finish with this semi-feral, beautiful quarter horse mare. People got to go on there and look at that. But we're halfway through the series right now. So until next time, have many happy horse hours.